to Journey of Enlightenment. I am your host, Dr. Gopaul. A few weeks ago, I took my children to see The Lion King on Broadway. It was a very exciting moment for them because they saw The Lion King on cinema and then on TV and then on TV again, and they looked at it so many times that I thought, why not take them to see this beautiful movie on stage? Now, as we know, stage acting is very different from doing movies or TV series. So we were there, and it was a mind-blowing experience for them as well as for me. What made this so amazing? It was fantastic costumes. It was unbelievable, and it was convincing. Elaborate props that changed the entire atmosphere of the theater. But the acting, it was on point. Amazing, skillful actors. We were very impressed with each and every aspect of The Lion King. But what if, when the actor who played, let's say, Simba, left the stage, kept the costume on, and then believed himself to actually be a lion? We will not have enjoyed that moment after the show. What if this individual decided to walk down Times Square, believing himself to be a lion? Now, at that point in time, the humor and the entertainment would stop, because we would now be thinking that this individual needs some sort of psychiatric evaluation. He should be admitted in a mental hospital, or at least he might be arrested because of posing a danger to himself and maybe to others if he genuinely believed himself to be a lion. Today's topic, I am looking at, who am I? What is the identity that we carry? And is this identity a true identity or a false identity? In the Ramayana, Shri began his journey into the forest, his 14-year exile accompanied by Lakshman and Sita. While on the journey, Shri met the Nishada chief. His name was Gopaul. Now, the Nishada was a tribe that lived on the outskirts of the forest. Upon seeing Shri Lakshman and Sita, the Nishada chief immediately knew who they were: the prince and the princess of Ayodhya. Upon nightfall, Ram and Sita prepared their bed to sleep. The floor. The prince of Ayodhya, the king of the solar race, with his wife Sita Mata, was about to sleep on the floor. This vision hurt the Nishada king terribly. He was distressed, and his eyes deceived him because he could not believe that the prince of the solar race, Shri Ram, would be lying on the floor asleep. Lakshman approached the Nishada chief, and he said to him, in a dream, a beggar is crowned king. In the same dream, the king of paradise becomes a beggar. Upon waking, did anything change? The beggar will still be the beggar. The king of paradise will still be the king of paradise. Nothing changes. it was just a dream. In Shri Ram's case, whether he slept in the most prized room, in the most exquisite bed in the palace, or on the floor in the forest, it could not change who he was. He was still Shri Ram, Prince of Ayodhya, the Prince of the solar race. The problem that we may face in life, and many of us do face this problem, is our identity. We sometimes feel that we need to either shift our identity to suit the environment, and in so doing, we betray or contradict ourselves, or we don't have an idea what our identity is. Our identity is our core. It tells who I am. We can look at this identity from the perspective of Vedanta, which is the philosophy of the Upanishads and the Vedas, which says that this identity is not our flesh, it is not our mind, it is even not our intellect. Our real identity surpasses the body, the mind, and the thought, the intellect. What is then this identity that transcends all these material aspects to life? This identity, according to the teachings of the Upanishads, is what we know as Sat, Sit, Ananda. Our identity is actually reality, consciousness, and bliss. It is a very simple concept. What is our identity? Our real identity has no beginning and it has no end. It is perpetually peaceful and joyful, filled with happiness and divine love. That is our true nature. I know the most relevant question at this point in time is that if that is our true nature, that is our identity, then why don't we live like that? Why don't we live with such joy and peace, kindness and compassion and happiness every day? The answer is quite simple. It's because we forget our identity. We forget who we are. And we start believing that we are something else. That is one perspective on our identity. Another perspective, and I'll use humanistic psychology, says that our identity is basically an accumulation of all our thoughts, our mannerisms, our personality traits, our likes and dislikes. That's our identity. But the core of that identity is the same as I said before, even under humanistic psychology. The core of that identity is still love and kindness and peace, generosity, compassion. Whether we look at that identity from a physiological, psychological perspective, or we look at it from a metaphysical or spiritual perspective, that identity remains Sat, Sit, Ananda, our reality, our consciousness, and our bliss. So what happens? Why do we tend to forget what we are and we try to be something else? Well, it has a lot to do with our own mental conditioning. As we grow in life, what are we exposed to? What do we start believing in? What is our belief system that starts a construction we'll call it our mental construct. Because of these influences and our own thought processes, we tend to forget that identity and we assume another identity, an identity that is not real. What do we assume ourselves to be? Well, it depends. My friend Jim, who visited me, he assumed his identity was his job. Upon retirement, he had no idea what to do in life. He was totally lost because he assumed his identity to be the role that he played. After many conversations with Jim, I then realized that he lived for his job, which was great and fantastic. But outside of that particular role that he played, then what? Some may identify themselves as resources. We all know what happened between 1929 and 1939, which we know as the greatest economic depression of our times, when the stock market crashed in New York and thousands upon thousands of people committed suicide because they attached that identity to resources. And without the resource, they believed that they had no identity. There was no reason to live. Another identity, being a false identity, which we unfortunately assume, might be the rank that we hold. So in society, I am identified as my rank. That rank is just a temporary title that is given to us, whether it be a rank such as your worship, your royal highness, your excellency, your majesty. It's just a temporary title that we carry. But we may mistakenly assume that title to be real, to be our permanent, unchanging identity. Our other issue in terms of our false identity might be in terms of the relationships that we have. We have seen instances, and very unfortunate I may add, where people are separated for various reasons and they lose their sense of self because their identity was attached to someone else. We have looked at 4 aspects of false identity. We have looked at resources, we have looked at roles, we have looked at relationships, and we have looked at rank. Upon losing any of these identities, do we still lose who we are? And hopefully the answer is no. We don't lose who we are. We remain true to our nature. Sat, Sit, Ananda. Our true nature does not change and cannot be changed because of these false identities. Our true nature remains bliss, happiness, love, compassion, kindness, generosity. Whether Shri Ram slept on the ground or in the palace, it made no difference because he was still the prince of the solar race. Nothing changed as a result. In so doing, let us reflect on ourselves. Let us not be those whose identity are attached to these changing circumstances. the impermanent aspects of life. Because if our identity is so attached to the changing factors of life, then our identity will constantly be challenged. It will change. It will be disrupted. It is not the type of life that we wish to live. No. We are to remain steadfast in who we are, knowing who we are, unaffected by the external factors of this life. We are bliss consciousness. We are perpetually in that state of love, generosity, kindness. Let us not compromise our real identity. Yes, we have different roles to play. We do have ranks that we carry. We do have resources that we must prudently manage. That is all true. But we are much more than resources, rank, roles, and relationships. We are bliss consciousness. We are meant to be happy. We are meant to be peaceful. We are meant to be filled with love. We are meant to be kind. Let that be the identity that we carry with us always. Thank you very much for joining me on Journey of Enlightenment, and I look forward to seeing you soon.